Hello and welcome back to Money Never Sleeps. My name is Timur from M&A Wealth. If you'd like more information about what you hear during the show, give us a call at 866-973-3627 or visit us online at mnawealth.com. And while at my website, click on the page to check out past shows and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. On this episode, we'll discuss the news that the US and China are pausing tariffs for 90 days while they negotiate a formal trade agreement. A Yahoo Finance article, US and China to slash tariffs for 90 days as Trump and Xi likely to talk maybe at the end of the week, has some interesting insights for us. On May 12th, after 2 intense days of high-stakes conversations, the US and China hit the pause button on what's been a pretty brutal trade war. We're talking about a 90-day stand down and a serious cut in tariffs on both sides, dropping some duties by more than 100 percentage points. That's not just a small tweak, that's a full-on reset. President Trump called it a total reset with China and mentioned he was likely to reconnect with President Xi later that week. If that conversation moves forward, it could lay the groundwork for even more progress. Here's what it means in plain terms. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods will fall from a high of 145% down to 30%, and China is slashing their retaliatory tariffs from 125% to just 10%. That's a game changer for exporters, importers, and frankly, anyone who buys, builds, or invests. This pause isn't just a breather, it's a signal. It tells the market, the business community, and everyday families that progress is possible when cooler heads prevail and strategy takes the wheel. And here's the other piece that's got folks in the financial world sitting up a little straighter shortly after the announcement, because markets love clarity and they really love signs of progress, and this deal gave them both. The moment the news hit, U.S. futures shot up in pre-market trading because it wasn't just about tariffs, it was about tone, a real meaningful de-escalation. And here's the best part, this 90-day pause isn't a ticking clock, it's a path. The article even notes that the pause could be extended as long as both sides keep showing good faith, stay engaged, and have the kind of dialogue that actually moves the needle. The US and China even released a joint statement, which is itself a rare thing these days, which said both sides plan to keep the conversation going, alternating meetings between our two countries during the next several weeks. That's not just diplomacy, that's momentum. And momentum matters. Whether you're managing a portfolio, building a business, or just trying to make smart money, moves in uncertain times. This is the kind of news that reminds us that progress happens when people stay at the table and keep talking. Let's zoom in on what this weekend's talks actually tackled, because this wasn't just a handshake and a photo op. This was the first round in what's expected to be a long, layered negotiation, covering everything from intellectual property to steel, semiconductors, agriculture, and even fentanyl. And here's something that surprised a lot of folks in a good way. Fentanyl became a central focus of the conversation. One U.S. official even called it the upside surprise of the weekend. The Chinese showed up ready to talk, sending a deputy minister to engage directly on the issue. That's a signal. They know it's serious, and they're showing up with substance, not just sound bites. That said, the 20% tariff the U.S. put in place early in the Trump presidency, specifically tied to fentanyl-related imports, is still in place. And that's why, even after the recent agreement, U.S. tariffs are dialing back to 30%, while China's fall to 10%. It's also worth noting that some of the tougher sector-specific tariffs, like the ones on electric vehicles and steel, are staying put. These were set before the current administration even took office, and they weren't touched in the May 12th announcement. The takeaway is that this was a solid first step, real progress, but it's just the beginning of a bigger journey, one that's going to take strategy, stamina, and steady follow-through. Let me quickly note that if you have concerns about what tariffs and trade deals could mean for your assets and eventual retirement, don't hesitate to reach out to your financial services professional to share those concerns and ask questions. Remember, one of the main drivers behind building a financial strategy is to have it to lean on when the market gets bumpy or murky. The article also notes that it's unlikely that any deal will include pharmaceuticals. That's because the administration wants to bring those businesses and those supply chains back home to the U.S. And honestly, that's part of a bigger conversation. A member of the American delegation shared that they've zeroed in on 5 or 6 key industries where we've got real vulnerabilities, places where we're either too dependent on overseas suppliers or lacking reliable partnerships. The goal moving forward is more strategic independence or trusted sourcing from close allies. Now, none of this happened overnight. This deal came after days of calm, calculated de-escalation by the US side and weeks of careful diplomatic posturing. Both countries had dialed up tariffs to the point where it felt like a full-on trade embargo. And make no mistake, each side tried to frame the other as the one who needed a deal more. But that's how leverage works in any negotiation. It's not about who yells loudest. It's about who stays focused on the outcomes. And here's what matters. Both sides came back to the table, progress was made, and now there's room to keep moving forward. For anyone out there leading a business, running a household, or building a financial plan, this is your reminder. Strategy is better reaction. Stay clear on your priorities, control what you can, and never be afraid to step back, regroup, and come back to the table smarter than you left it. Now here's where things really started to turn. Up until recently, President Trump's tone about China had been firm, some might even say unflinching. As late as May 7th, he told reporters that the US was losing nothing by not trading with Beijing. And when asked if he'd consider lowering that sky-high 145% tariff before negotiations began, he gave a classic Trump response: no. But then, the tone began to shift. And if you've been in any kind of negotiation, whether business, personal, or political, you know tone is everything. By May 8th, there was a subtle pivot. The president said that if this weekend's talks went well, tariffs could come down. And just a day later, on May 9th, he posted that bringing tariffs down to 80% seems right. That's a meaningful move. That's someone opening the door, not wide open, but unlocked and cracked, just enough to say, let's talk. And then came May 10th. After the meetings in Switzerland, where he called it a very good meeting with China, negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner. That's a dramatic shift in posture and a lesson in strategic communication, because sometimes strength isn't about doubling down. It's about knowing when to pivot, when to de-escalate, when to shift from pressure to progress. That's something you can take into every part of life, negotiations with a client, a team, a vendor, or even yourself. Keep your principles, but stay open to progress. That's how deals get made and futures get built. If you have any questions about your retirement magic number, your retirement strategy, or any other parts of your financial strategy, visit my website at mnawealth.com or call my office at 866-973-3627 to discuss how my team might be able to answer your questions and address your concerns. It's our goal to help you prepare for the retirement you've worked so hard for.
Disclosure. All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of M&A Wealth and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, M&A Wealth makes no representations as to its accuracy or completeness. This commercial shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or advisory services to residents where permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Advisory services offered through M&A Wealth, a registered investment advisor in the state of Texas. Insurance products and services are offered through PNC Life Insurance Agency, an affiliated company. M&A Wealth and PNC Life Insurance Agency are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.